Brothers and sisters, listen closely, for what you are about to hear is not just a retelling of another political drama, not just another midnight phone call between leaders, but the living, breathing heartbeat of a continent that found its voice in the silence of the night. It is the story of how one man's refusal to kneel transformed not only his nation, but the imagination of millions across Africa and beyond. The scene was set in Ouagadougou, capital of Burkina Faso, a city draped in the heavy stillness of the Sahel night. The dusty streets were silent, the lamps dim, the air thick with waiting. But inside the presidential residence, the silence was ripped apart by the shrill ring of the red phone. The time was 3:17 a.m., a time when empires test the courage of those who refuse to bow. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, president of Burkina Faso, had been awake already, poring over intelligence reports, cross-checking dossiers on foreign interference, drafting strategies for food security, sketching visions for a continent too long treated as a playground for outside powers. Yet no preparation could soften the blow of the voice that cut across the line. Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, not an ambassador, not an underling, but the man himself, speaking with the arrogance of centuries of empire behind him. "Captain Traoré," he said, his tone as cold as desert steel, "you have exactly 48 hours. Reinstate our surveillance partnerships. Reverse your decisions against Israeli mining contracts. Restore what you have broken, or face two choices. Flee your country like a coward or surrender your presidency and leave your people to us. Two choices," he said, like a master offering an enslaved man the illusion of freedom. Traoré's jaw tightened. The silence stretched. And then his voice, calm but firm, cracked the night. "Mr. Prime Minister, Burkina Faso is not a plantation. I will not crawl. I will not bow. And I will not betray my people because a foreign leader threatens me at night. Your 48 hours begin now, not mine." And with a click, the line went dead. The most feared caller in the world had been silenced by the will of a young African captain. Hour one began not with cannons or missiles, but with whispers, encrypted leaks sliding into local radio networks. Journalists murmured of a foreign ultimatum. Anonymous voices online posted fragments. "Traoré has been threatened." By hour two, the rumor leapt like wildfire through the markets of Ouagadougou. Sellers dropped baskets of millet mid-transaction. Taxi drivers repeated the words to every passenger. They gave him 48 hours. By hour three, the military council had gathered in emergency session, faces drawn, voices sharp. "Sir, this is no bluff. Economic warfare could start tonight. Cyber attacks may paralyze our banks, cripple our communications." But Traoré, composed as granite, looked them in the eye and replied, "Then let them attack. Every threat exposes them more than it weakens us." His words settled like iron in their chests. By hour four, disruptions rippled through the capital. The internet flickered. The central bank servers came under assault. But the newly trained cybersecurity unit young Burkina engineers, schooled in Ghana, Russia, and their own determination rose like shields. For every virus, they produced a counter. For every hack, a firewall. They were fighting not only for systems, but for dignity. By hour five, fear and defiance clashed across social media. Some voices quivered. Why provoke Israel? Why risk everything? Others answered, better war on our feet than slavery on our knees. By hour six, dawn cracked the horizon, and with it rose not panic, but something more powerful, unity. Hour seven saw the students move first. At the University of Ouagadougou, they poured through the gates, carrying placards scrawled by hand. 48 hours? We survived 400 years. Their chants rolled down the streets like thunder. Hour 8 brought the women of the markets. Balancing baskets on their heads, babies tied to their backs, they shouted slogans older than the soil. We are not for sale. Our gold, our soil, our children belong to us. Our 9. The whispers reached the world. Al Jazeera hinted at an ultimatum. African networks speculated. France 24 hesitated, cautious to confirm. But in Ouagadougou, confirmation was unnecessary. The people already knew. And so they gathered outside the presidential palace by the thousands, not to beg for protection, but to declare themselves shields of their leader. If you touch Traoré, you touch all of us. By the midday heat of hour 10, the diaspora had ignited. Burkina communities in Paris, Abidjan, and New York streamed live videos. If our president falls, we rise everywhere. Hour 11 saw Mali's transitional government issue a bold statement. An attack on Ouagadougou is an attack on Bamako. By hour 12, it was no longer Netanyahu versus Traoré. It had become a symbol of whether Africa could decide its own leaders. Standing at the palace window, Traoré gazed at the swelling crowd, elders with raised fists, children waving flags, mothers singing lullabies that sounded like war chants. Turning to his generals, he said, "Netanyahu thinks he gave me 48 hours. Look outside." Burkina Faso has already answered. Hour 13, the crowds grew into waves. Families unrolled mats, prepared to spend the night in vigil. Hour 14, the students drafted their manifesto. If our president falls, the youth will govern themselves. Africa must not be commanded at midnight by foreign powers. It spread like wildfire across WhatsApp and Telegram, morphing into hashtags. Hashtag 48 hours of defiance, hashtag TRA, or E, acute stands. By hour 15, Burkina workers in Paris gathered outside the Israeli embassy. In New York, African diaspora flooded Times Square. Traoré is Africa. Africa is Traoré. The chants echoed across oceans. Hour 16, the media war escalated. CNN hedged. Al Jazeera confirmed. RT and Press TV framed it as African defiance. France 24 called it reckless leadership. Africans exploded in comments. Why reckless? He is defending sovereignty. Hour 17, the red phone rang again. Netanyahu's voice dripped with contempt. "Captain, you now have 31 hours. Do not mistake cheers for power. Your people will suffer." Traoré's reply was steady. "Let me save you hours. My decision will not change." "You do not understand what you face," Netanyahu sneered. Traoré lowered the receiver toward the balcony. The chants of thousands thundered through the line. "Traoré! Traoré! Burkina Faso forever!" The line went dead. Hour 18, the cyber chaos struck. The national broadcaster was hacked with a false announcement. Traoré resigns. Panic flickered, but within minutes, the truth shattered it. Traoré live on radio, holding firm. "I am here. I am not resigning. Do not believe their lies." The crowd outside erupted. Hour 19, the banks were strangled. Transfers frozen, reserves blocked. Western analysts crowed of collapse. But farmers rolled in carts of millet and cassava, shouting, "We feed our people before foreigners." A survival economy was born in the dust. Hour 20, women marched again, pots on heads, babies on backs, chanting, "If they touch Traoré, they touch our wounds, our children, our land." Their images circled the world, impossible to discredit. Hour 21, Traoré summoned his commanders. Their vow thundered, "We do not protect your chair. We protect Burkina Faso. Even if the palace burns, we will fight from the ruins." The vow leaked online and went viral. Hour 22, African leaders spoke. Mali, touch Traoré, touch Mali, Niger. Burkina Faso does not stand alone. South Africa, foreign ultimatums to African leaders belong in the past. Hour 23, the night march blazed. Thousands lit torches, chanting, "We are the shield. We are the fire." 48 hours will pass, but Traoré will remain. Hour 24, the halfway mark. No resignation, no surrender, only swelling unity. On the balcony, Traoré declared, "They thought fear would silence us. But look, you are louder than fear. Tomorrow the world will know. Africa cannot be commanded." The roar drowned the night. By hour 25. Foreign media screens flashed fake coups, fabricated footage of soldiers storming the palace. Within minutes, it was debunked, a crude video game overlay. Traoré himself appeared live, holding that morning's paper. Brothers and sisters, do you see? They invent lies because they cannot defeat us with truth. Burkina Faso stands. The people roared with laughter and rage. Hour 26, Israel throttled the internet again. But African engineers lit up mesh networks, underground satellites, peer-to-peer channels. Videos of mothers cooking for protesters, soldiers guarding streets, chants shaking the capital, all streamed live. Silence was denied. Hour 27, wavering African presidents phoned with caution. "Captain, perhaps negotiate." He cut them short. "This is not symbolism. This is sovereignty. If we lose it today, none of us have it tomorrow." His refusal burned through the continent. Hour 28, sanctions bit deeper. Fuel halted, reserves frozen. But Venezuela announced emergency fuel shipments. Iran pledged cyber aid. Russia promised grain. Burkina Faso is not alone. Hour 29, high schools emptied. Teenagers painted walls. "We are the generation of no retreat." Teachers marched beside them. Education itself became rebellion. Hour 30, Netanyahu called again, frustration sharp. 18 hours left. "Step down." Traoré's answer, "You miscalculated. Threats have only united us. You can threaten a man, but not a nation." Silence fell. Hour 31, solidarity surged continent-wide. Nigerian students shut down campuses. Ghanaian activists surrounded embassies. Kenyan MPs demanded a resolution. What began in Ouagadougou now thundered F. Hour 34, the morning sun glared upon Ouagadougou, its rays painting the sky with the stubborn brilliance of defiance, as if nature itself declared allegiance with the people. The crowds had not dispersed through the night. Instead, their numbers multiplied, faces weary but unbroken, eyes aflame with a unity that only the threat of chains can ignite. Vendors brought food freely to strangers. Soldiers moved among the masses not as rulers, but as brothers. Women brewed strong tea in dented kettles, pouring cups for protesters who refused to surrender their post. From rooftops, from balconies, from the dusty streets, the message was the same. 48 hours may be theirs, but destiny belongs to us. By hour 35, the intelligence services confirmed foreign mercenary movements near Burkina Faso's borders. Armed men trained in sabotage slipped into neighboring lands, waiting for the spark to ignite. But Traoré anticipated this. If they enter, he told his commanders, they will not find a fractured land. They will find a nation of millions prepared for them. And so, preparations were made not in secrecy, but in daylight. Young men and women enrolled in civil defense patrols, learning not only how to protect their streets, but how to carry the spirit of resistance, as if it were on heirloom. Hour 36 brought spiritual reinforcement. Across Ouagadougou, imams called from minarets, their voices rising above the hum of protest. God does not change the condition of a people until they change what is within themselves. Churches echoed with hymns that bled into the streets, declaring faith in liberation. This was no longer merely a geopolitical standoff. It had become a spiritual awakening. By hour 37, diaspora rallies shook Europe. In Paris, Thousands of Burkinabe West Africans blocked roads, shouting, "Hands off Africa!" In Berlin, students unfurled banners, "We are all Ouagadougou." And in Washington, activists gathered outside the Capitol, demanding, "Respect African sovereignty." For every sanction, for every pressure, a counterwave of human solidarity surged higher. Hour 38, the economic blockade tightened. Bank systems froze again. But the markets did not collapse. They transformed. Farmers from villages poured in with sacks of grain, selling in barter, refusing foreign currency. "Our millet is stronger than their dollars," they said. And with laughter, the people bought, traded, shared. Hunger did not come. Instead, resilience blossomed like desert flowers after rain. Hour 39 saw Israel escalate through propaganda. Paid analysts swarmed international TV, branding Traoré a dictator, a danger, a destabilizer. But the people filmed themselves live, posting raw, unfiltered footage, men and women dancing, soldiers shaking hands with children, students painting murals of Africa rising. The contrast shattered the lies. How can a dictator walk among us without fear? A woman asked on camera. He is not hiding in bunkers. He is standing with us. That clip spread to millions within hours. Hour 40, Netanyahu made his fiercest threat yet. The red phone crackled, his voice tight with fury. "You are dragging your country into ruin. You are nothing but a captain in uniform. We have toppled greater men than you. 18 hours remain. When this ends, your name will be dust." Traoré's answer carried the calm of a man who had already won. "Mr. Prime Minister, if my name is dust, then it will be dust carried by the winds of freedom across Africa. And dust does not vanish, it fertilizes the soil for new life." Netanyahu said nothing more. He ended the call. By hour 41, tension gripped the streets, yet fear had melted into something unshakable. Children marched alongside elders, chanting slogans that had become like prayers. No retreat, no surrender, no chains. Hour 42, neighboring Mali and Niger deployed additional troops to their own borders, sending a message. Burkina Faso is not alone. ECOWAS has remained divided, but its silence could not drown the noise of Africa's awakening. Hour 43, the world's media scrambled to keep up. In London, journalists debated whether Africa was entering a new age. In Beijing, analysts quietly admitted, this is the first time a small African nation has openly defied without folding. Hour 44, the sanctions boomeranged. French companies lost contracts. Israeli firms saw protests at their African branches. What was meant to isolate Traoré began isolating his adversaries. Hour 45, the palace balcony became the pulpit of history. Traoré stood again before the swelling crowd, his voice breaking through loudspeakers. They think sovereignty is negotiable. They think independence is paperwork. No, it is written in our blood, in our sweat, in our graves. And if we must, we will write it again. Not for Burkina Faso alone, but for Africa entire. The roar of the people answered like thunder. Hour 46. The threats escalated into sabotage. Electricity grids flickered. Blackouts rolled across districts. But within hours, engineers restored power using backup systems cobbled from scraps. "They cut us," one engineer laughed, "but we sew ourselves stronger." The blackout became a badge of pride, proof that even without their control, life continued. Hour 47, mercenaries tried infiltrating the borders. Local villagers spotted them. Instead of fear, they raised alarms, forming human chains, blocking routes, forcing them back before soldiers even arrived. It was as if the entire land itself had become a defense line. By hour 48, the climax neared. Foreign media breathlessly reported, "The deadline is up." Cameras trained on the palace. Analysts predicted collapse, surrender, exile. But instead, as the minutes struck, Captain Traoré stepped once more into the blazing light of noon. Dressed not in a general's regalia, but in simple fatigues, he held the microphone and spoke words that will echo for generations. 48 hours ago, they called me with threats. They told me to choose between fleeing and surrendering. I chose neither. One chose Africa. I chose my people. And today, as the clock runs out, look around you. Do you see surrender? Do you see fear? No, you see the future. This is Burkina Faso. This is Africa. And no one will command us again. The crowd exploded, not with chaos, but with unity, so fierce it drowned every prediction of failure. The chant rolled like an earthquake. Traoré. Africa. Freedom. Social media lit with the footage, the hashtags trending worldwide. Hashtag Africa has risen. Hash 48 hours of defiance. Hashtag Burkina never bows. In capitals across the continent, from Dakar to Dar es Salaam, spontaneous marches erupted. African youths painted murals of Traoré's silhouette beside Thomas Sankara, Patrice Lumumba, and Nelson Mandela. This was no longer about one man or one country. It had become the ignition of a movement. Netanyahu's threats had backfired spectacularly. Instead of isolating Traoré, they had made him the symbol of Africa's rebirth. And in that moment, the 48-hour ultimatum did not end in surrender. It ended in resurrection. A resurrection of pride, of sovereignty, of unity that no midnight phone call could extinguish. Burkina Faso had not just survived the storm, it had become the storm. And the world, for the first time in centuries, had to reckon with an Africa that refused to bow, an Africa that spoke with one voice through a captain who became more than a leader. He became the echo of a continent's soul.